I don't know when I was first captured by the enchantment of the midnight sun, but it must have been this Swedish pamphlet which turned enchantment into obsession. I had to see it for myself. From Gothenburg, Sweden's leading port, a crack passenger train sped me to Stockholm, city on the water, capital of Sweden. Some say it's the most beautiful city in the world, and it's easy to see why. But we can't tarry long just now, because our sunlit night's land cruiser is already pulling out for Lapland and the Arctic Circle. Now let's have a look at the route. Starting from Stockholm, on the first day of our trip, we will reach the lovely province of Dalecarlia. But to see the midnight sun, we must go north of the Arctic Circle, which crosses Sweden in Lapland, where we will spend most of our cruising days. And so back again to our starting point. Our first stop came 40 miles north of Stockholm in the ancient university city of Uppsala. Traditionally, life in Uppsala has revolved around the university, which is almost 500 years old, and the 13th century Gothic cathedral. From the 16th century castle on a hill overlooking the town, we could see across the fertile Uppsala plains. Nearby is Old Uppsala. Only 3 gigantic burial mounds still remain from pagan times. But this was a stronghold of the heathen chieftains until the advent of Christianity 900 years ago. And here we drank the drink of the Vikings, mead, and drank it as the Vikings did, from an ox horn with ample capacity. But there's a lot more to see before the first day is ended, and we were soon back aboard the train and rolling north to Rättvik in the heart of Dalecarlia. We found ourselves in another world, a world full of color, beauty, music, and friendliness. The scenery, the costumes, the music, and the dances were strange. Yet we felt at home here, and we were soon learning the dances ourselves. In the ox dance, 2 rivals argue over which one wins the girl. In 1849, Hans Christian Andersen said, "Painters and poets join hand and go to Dalecarlia." We soon understood what he meant. The charm of this province is largely to be found in its striking contrasts. As summer began, the farmers of olden times used to bring their cattle up to the pastures on the mountain. Each dairymaid had a special song she played on her birch bark horn. Here and there, this custom has survived. An old-world atmosphere of charm and romance still lingers at such places as Friksosen, our next objective. Here we were served the ancient Dalecarlian foods. Long milk has a character all of its own. We ate delicious cloudberries and whipped cream. But who could expect to find tortillas in Sweden? They're delicious Swedish pancakes, but they resemble that Mexican dish. After such food on such a day, everybody felt like a kid again. On the way down, we had an unforgettable panorama for miles around the entire Siljan district. This is a land of large forests. In the widespread areas between industrial centers, the beautiful natural scenery is almost untouched by man. Old traditions have been preserved in this province. The ancient parish costumes are worn at festivals, weddings, and for church services throughout the year. It is typical of the Siljan Valley that each parish is a world of its own, with different costumes, dialects, and customs. But the costumes are most beautiful of all when worn by little children. A favorite tourist item is the Dala horse, which is often seen on the Swedish Christmas table. But sometimes they grow larger than table size. This hotel offers a magnificent view across lovely Lake Siljan to the blue hills which stretch away to the horizon. The Dalecarlian summer is famous for its warm nights, which hold lingering exotic beauty. There's plenty of opportunity to see the countryside, sleeping in our rolling hotel, but spending the long days visiting the most interesting spots along the route. Wake up, sleepyhead. I can't figure out where we are. Well, how do you expect me to know at this time of day?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are now in the province of Jämtland, and in a couple of minutes we arrive in Åre.
Sweden's #1 alpine ski resort, site of a World's Championship ski contest, is a wonderful place to visit in summertime too. The lovely province of Jämtland is a district of ever-changing beauty, ranging from the lovely landscape of deep river valleys through forest districts dotted with glittering lakes to the easily accessible mountain world. Here is a range of alluring mountain peaks with the strange and wondrous silence of the wide open spaces. The crystal lakes up here abound with game fish. We traveled quite far north, yet we're only in the middle of Sweden. It's here that we find one of the most magnificent waterfalls in the country. In fact, Tenfursen is often called Sweden's Niagara. See those logs? Well, remember them, because later on we'll find out where they're headed. They were cut down last winter and hauled to the river's edge to await the coming of spring, when the melting waters carried them away. But the trip has hardly begun. So it's back to the train to follow the rivers to the broad coastal plain. After a few hours, we meet the majestic Ångermanland River, and we spend a fascinating day following its blue rapids, going down to the Baltic Sea. This was one of the many rivers which supply Sweden with vital electric power for her industries, and even for our own electric train. And what's that? Yes, Sweden is a salmon country. So let's hurry on to Sollefteå to see what they taste like. At the famous hotel Appelberget, King Salmon ruled the gigantic smorgasbord table. It really tasted wonderful. Now remember those logs we saw back at the big waterfall? Well, they've reached the coast now. Countless millions of them down there, carried across Sweden by the river arteries of the nation. The Swedish economy is based on three vital natural resources: forests, ores, and water power. Sweden's 86,500 square miles of forest furnish the raw material for a variety of products. Not only lumber, paper, and cellulose pulp, but alcohol and other chemicals, plastics, glue, dyes, turpentine, and many other items. And what a playground for us grown-up kids. But we must get further north if we want to see the midnight sun. So let's board our electric train once again. The photographer on board is busy developing film for the many camera fans on the trip, but I let him take the pictures for me. I was too busy just enjoying myself. This is the only full day we spent on the train, but this was an enjoyable day too, with everyone doing just what he wanted, working, sleeping, or looking at a movie. And now we are at the Arctic Circle. There's no denying that sign. And there's King Bora with his lap assistants to welcome us to his kingdom of white summer nights. Sometimes we really felt like we were eating our way through Sweden. We are now on one of the most exciting railway lines in the world, running to Narvik in Norway. Beneath us shimmers the dark green water of Rombaksbotn, a Norwegian fjord of breathtaking beauty. Just when the beauty of the fjord was too overwhelming to bear, we arrived in Narvik, beautifully situated on the deep Ufoten fjord. This is the most northern point of our trip, and how far north we really are, we can find by checking at the globe. At the latitude of Narvik, we passed the middle of Greenland and the Eskimo territories in northern Alaska. Thanks to the warm Gulf Stream, however, this fjord is free from ice all the year around, even though it is so far inside the Arctic Circle. On the fjord itself, we felt much closer to the equator. But it couldn't be this warm. Well, not always, but temperatures up to 90 degrees are not unusual for this time of the year. That night we returned to Sweden. And what a thrill to see a rainbow at 11 p.m. This part of Scandinavia gets its name from the Lapps, who follow their reindeer in annual migrations across hundreds of miles. The more adventurous souls on board left the train to visit a Lapp camp, hoping to meet some of those hardy people. we were met by a little woman who proved that the stories about Lapp hardiness are understatements, if anything. The camp lay at the top of a hill, but if we expected to meet all its inhabitants, we were disappointed. The men were out in the wilderness, rounding up their herds. However, we were heartily welcomed and were invited to spend the night in a Lapp tent. We soon felt at home, and we found the taste of smoked reindeer meat, well, shall we say, interesting? Our beds were fresh cut branches, covered by reindeer skins, and although there were no modern conveniences, it was certainly a cozy, comfortable night. Our alarm clock next morning was the soft tinkle of bells, but it wasn't the reindeer coming home. It was the tame goats, ready for morning milking. The next excursion was to Jukkasjärvi, and here everybody had a chance to see a Lapp camp, although this one has become a museum. Lapps come here from hundreds of miles away to attend services in their ancient church. Alongside this church runs the Turnaelv, a river which was to provide the greatest thrill of all to those few of us who dared to shoot its 36 miles of rapids. Those 6 hours of excitement were enough to whet our appetites to a keen edge, and it was the river itself which provided our lunch. And for this part of Sweden is a fisherman's paradise. And the fish was certainly delicious, cooked over an open fire in the wilderness. For some days now, we have completely forgotten that there is something called nights, and there's no great need for sleep up here. We almost never felt tired. The colors to be seen during the midnight hours are magnificent. Off there in the distance, across Lake Torneträsk, is the famous Lapp Gate, through which the souls of all Lapps are said to pass, both at birth and again at death. But the magic hour of midnight is approaching, and now, up to the top of our journey to beautiful Sweden, to the midnight sun.